The last thing I expected on the 4th of July was to hear my work rival introduce me as her boyfriend in front of 50 people. One moment I was standing in a crowded backyard holding a paper plate of barbecue, wondering why I had agreed to come. The next, every head turned toward me as she wrapped an arm around mine and smiled like we had been together for years. Her family cheered. Her grandmother started crying happy tears. And I stood there frozen, realizing I had just become part of a story I didn't understand. Before we continue, if you believe kindness deserves a second chance and that people can surprise us when we least expect it, please like this video, comment below, share it with someone who loves heartfelt stories, and subscribe to the Dad Chronicles for more emotional journeys that stay with you long after they end. My name is Callum Reeves, and for 3 years, I worked alongside a woman named Tessa Whitmore. Calling her my rival would have been putting it mildly. We competed for promotions, projects, and recognition. If there was a meeting, we challenged each other's ideas. If there was a deadline, we raced to finish first. Everyone at the marketing firm knew about our rivalry. The strange part was that neither of us was actually mean. We simply brought out the most competitive parts of each other. Some people thought we secretly hated one another. Others thought there was something deeper happening beneath all the arguments. I always dismissed those rumors. Tessa was talented, stubborn, and impossible to predict. She made my job harder every day. At least, that was what I told myself. The week before the holiday weekend, Tessa approached my desk with an unusual request. Her expression lacked the confidence she normally carried. For the first time since I'd known her, she looked nervous. She explained that her family was hosting their annual 4th of July barbecue. Every year hundreds of relatives gathered at her parents' farm outside the city. There was food, music, games, and traditions stretching back generations. Then she asked if I would come. The request caught me completely off guard. Nothing about our relationship suggested we spent time together outside work. Yet there was something in her eyes that made it difficult to refuse. Against my better judgment, I agreed. The drive to her family's farm took nearly 2 hours. The farther we traveled from the city, the quieter the roads became. Summer fields stretched endlessly beneath a bright blue sky. White clouds drifted lazily overhead. The entire countryside seemed peaceful in a way my busy life rarely allowed. When we arrived, I immediately understood why she had seemed nervous. The property was packed with people. Children ran across wide green lawns waving small American flags. Relatives laughed beneath decorated tents. Long tables overflowed with food. Music floated through the warm afternoon air. This wasn't a casual family gathering. This was a family institution. And everyone seemed to know everyone. Everyone except me. For the first hour, Tessa introduced me as a coworker. Her family welcomed me warmly, but I could sense something unusual. Several relatives exchanged concerned glances whenever they looked at her. Her parents smiled bravely but carried a sadness they couldn't quite hide. I couldn't understand what was happening. Then everything changed. A group of relatives approached us near the barbecue grills. Questions began flying. Questions about relationships. About dating. About whether Tessa had finally met someone special. Before I could process what was happening, Tessa took a deep breath. Then she introduced me as her boyfriend. The reaction was immediate. Cheers erupted across the yard. People hugged her. Several relatives wiped tears from their eyes. Even her father looked visibly relieved. Meanwhile, I stood there completely stunned. Every instinct told me to correct the misunderstanding immediately. Yet when I glanced at Tessa, I noticed something that stopped me. Fear. Not embarrassment. Not manipulation. Fear. For the remainder of the afternoon, I played along because I sensed there was a reason behind it. As the hours passed, I learned more about her family. Her grandmother had recently suffered serious health setbacks. Family members worried constantly about her. For years, her grandmother had dreamed of seeing Tessa happy and settled with someone who cared about her. But Tessa had spent most of her adult life focused on work, including our endless rivalry. Late that afternoon, I finally found myself sitting alone on the farmhouse porch with her. The truth came out slowly. Months earlier, doctors had given her grandmother difficult news about her health. Since then, the elderly woman had become increasingly worried about leaving the family behind. Tessa had mentioned dating someone simply to ease her grandmother's concerns. The harmless lie had grown larger than intended. Now her entire family believed she had been in a serious relationship. As the holiday approached, she panicked. She didn't know who else to ask. Hearing her explain everything, I expected to feel angry. Instead, I felt something else. Compassion. For the first time, I wasn't looking at the confident rival who challenged me in conference rooms. I was looking at a granddaughter trying desperately to protect someone she loved. The rest of the day felt different after that. I spent time with her family. I listened to stories about her childhood. I watched her help her grandmother navigate the crowded yard. I saw patience, kindness, and warmth that never appeared inside the office. The version of Tessa I thought I knew was only part of the picture. As evening approached, her grandmother asked if we could sit beside her beneath a large oak tree. The old woman looked happier than anyone else at the gathering. There was a peace in her eyes that struck me deeply. For a moment, I understood why Tessa had been willing to risk everything for this one day. Sometimes love isn't about grand gestures. Sometimes it's about carrying someone else's worries when they're too heavy to bear alone. The fireworks began shortly afterward. Families gathered across the lawn as colorful bursts filled the sky. Children laughed. Neighbors cheered. The entire farm glowed with celebration. Standing there beneath the bright afternoon fading into early evening, I realized something uncomfortable. The person I had spent years competing against wasn't my enemy. She was someone I admired. Someone whose determination mirrored my own. Someone who cared deeply, even when she struggled to show it. The weeks following the barbecue changed everything. Our rivalry softened. Conversations became easier. Competition gradually turned into partnership. Then friendship. Eventually, friendship became something neither of us could ignore. Months later, when we finally began dating for real, there was no dramatic announcement. Just two people who had finally stopped fighting long enough to understand each other. The most surprising part came when I visited her grandmother again. She smiled knowingly before either of us said a word. Somehow she seemed to understand that the relationship had become real. If this story has touched your heart, please like, comment, and share it with someone who believes that unexpected beginnings can lead to beautiful endings. Special request: comment below and tell us about a person you misjudged at first but later became important in your life. A year after that unforgettable 4th of July, I stood in the same backyard surrounded by the same family. The tables were filled with food. Children ran through the grass. Laughter echoed across the farm. This time, when Tessa introduced me as her boyfriend, it wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't a favor. It wasn't a temporary solution to a difficult situation. It was simply the truth. Looking around at the people gathered there, I realized something powerful. Life often hides its greatest gifts inside situations we never wanted. What began as an awkward invitation from a work rival became the start of a relationship built on understanding, trust, and compassion. Sometimes the person standing on the opposite side of the room isn't your competition. Sometimes they're the person who was meant to walk beside you all along. And sometimes all it takes to discover that is one unexpected invitation to a family barbecue on a warm 4th of July afternoon.